This meeting will come to order. Today is Tuesday, May 9th, 2017. This is a special study session of the Prescott City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Olberg.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lamerson.
Here.
Councilman Blair. Here. Councilman Lizelle.
Here.
Councilwoman Orr.
Here.
Councilman Shiska.
Here.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Here.
All present.
Okay, I want to thank everybody that took time out of the day to come in today. We have 3 items for discussion, and I will go ahead and allow public comment on all of them. Item A, please.
Presentation of Prescott National Forest regarding building a new facility on city lease property at Pioneer Park.
Good afternoon. Celeste Gordon.
Yeah, step up to the mic, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Celeste Gordon, Prescott National Forest. I'm the Public Services Staff Officer, and with me I've got Kendra Bull. She's our forest engineer. And we're going to do a presentation first, and then we'll have questions after. And if somebody does want a handout with some talking points, I do have some information, additional information. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Kendra Bull, like she said, and we're going to talk really briefly about this office consolidation. So why are we consolidating? The Prescott National Forest very recently conducted a facility master plan where we studied all of our facilities, and we determined that we have a lot of buildings with that are underutilized. We don't have the staffs that we used to, and so with that we have a lot of deferred maintenance for a few people in some of our buildings. So which of the buildings did we determine needed to be consolidated? Those are the Chino Valley Ranger District, the Bradshaw Ranger District, and the Supervisor's Office. For those of you that are unfamiliar with our district names, Chino Valley Ranger District is located in Chino Valley. Bradshaw Ranger District is downtown across the street here in Prescott. And then our Supervisor's Office is located up at the junction with Smoke Tree and Willow. And it's kind of out of the way and doesn't currently have any visitor services, so many of you might not know where that building is. So we're proposing to consolidate all of these new buildings into a single building by 2021, which seems a long ways away, but those of you who have experience with facilities, it can take a really long time for us to sell everything, combine, consolidate, and get out there. So we're starting to do some of our background work right now. We've done a little bit of work to determine what an ideal location would be, and currently right now our best alternative is at the southeast corner of Pioneer Parkway and Commerce Drive. I'm pretty sure most of us are familiar with that location. You do have buildings in a very close proximity. It's hard to see, but there's a little rectangle near the bottom corner of that proposed parcel, and those I believe are City of Prescott Parks and Recreation building, is that correct? So the proposed location is on that parcel. It's a BLM owned parcel, and we are starting to move forward with this idea. Just for reference, for those of you that aren't familiar with Commerce Drive, the Embry Riddle, it's a little bit hard to see, is just to the right on this map. Okay. So the benefits of this location, it's convenient for a majority of the commuting employees. We have a lot of people that live in Prescott, and then we have a lot of people that live in Chino Valley and Prescott Valley that commute to work, so it's convenient for our employees. It's also, we're hoping we can accommodate more types of vehicles coming to park in this location. We don't currently have good parking for RVs that are trying to get downtown that just want information before they go out on the forest, so we're hoping to accommodate that. We'd also be located near some of the trails, and there's the potential to share parking. I know there's a lot of events out there, and we'd have this big open parking lot on the weekends because we don't staff the office on the weekends, with the exception of perhaps some visitor services up at the front desk. So that's just a summary of some of the benefits. So what do we need to do now? We need the City of Prescott to support our initial efforts to consolidate and put the building in this parcel. Other things that we are currently doing to proceed and move forward are, the way we're going to pay for this consolidation is we're going to have to convey or sell several of our properties, and I just want to make everyone aware of what those properties are. The Verde land parcels are in Camp Verde, and they're fairly far from the City of Prescott, but Groom Creek's very close. So just, we're proposing to convey Groom Creek, the Chino Valley Ranger District, and the Bradshaw Ranger District. We don't own the supervisor's office that's down over on Willow and Smoke Tree. That's a leased.
Still own the one property off 69, or was that ever? There used to be an office 69 north.
Oh, that was leased as well.
That was leased too.
Yep. So in our site selection, we'd like to gain support from the City of Prescott. We obviously need an agreement from the BLM because we can't just put buildings on their property without asking them. And then we need to conduct a lot of preliminary analysis. We've, I don't know how to say it. We need to make sure we're doing our due diligence and our NEPA to make sure there's no archaeological resources, and we want to analyze the community impact, traffic studies, that kind of thing. So we're in the very initial phases of this. So our estimates, we're thinking about 3 years, start to finish design and construction. It's the federal government. We don't sometimes move as fast as the private industry, so we're trying to be overly generous with the amount of time we're giving ourselves. And as we start this design process, we would welcome the City of Prescott to provide input on our initial designs, and we'd like your opinions to be considered. So the design process is likely going to start in the fall of 2018, which, yes, is over a year away, but like I said, we think it's going to take a really long time to actually finalize the site selection and things like that, so we're giving ourselves a head start. And our driving force is the supervisor's office lease expires in 2021, so we want to be in our new building. We don't want to have to move those employees twice by 2021. So that is the presentation, and thank you for your time.
Well, let me first say that you probably need a lot of lead time, because if you're working with BLM, it's like, trying to pour molasses in the Antarctic. So you probably need a lot of time to get that put through. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Here again, government's government, right? Including the Forest Service. If number one, we appreciate the Forest Service being located in the city of Prescott. We appreciate the relationship we have with the Forest Service. Many of us here are very sensitive to fire. Many of us are very sensitive to the fact that we live in a community subject to wildland fire. So when you say you're looking to the city for support, what does the word support actually mean? That's a difficult thing. I mean, are we looking for some sort of planning and zoning issue support? What are we looking for?
So from you, what has to happen is the parcel that we're looking at is actually under a Recreation Act with the BLM. And so what we need right now to move forward with this proposal is just a letter of support allowing us to look at that parcel as one of our alternatives to building a new office. It's not, no, we're glad to be having an office here in Prescott. We know what kind of support we need, and I think the partnership that we have, both from trails and just from fire and all the other aspects of having a Forest Service office here is important. So right now, all we need is just a letter addressing the fact that it's BLM land, but there is also this act that allows you, the city and also the county, to build recreation facilities on those parcels. And so in order for us to get a 15 to 20 acre parcel in that area, we need that letter. So.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And keeping in mind the Bureau of Land Management is also not the enemy. They're part of who we are and such. So I think we have a good relationship with them too. So thank you for being here.
Go ahead.
Celeste did a pretty good job, but currently we lease that property from BLM through what's called the Recreation and Public Purposes Act, which means you could put recreation facilities on it, you could put government buildings on there, but we would need to step aside from our lease from BLM on that piece, whatever that ends up being. So she got it pretty close, but we would have to step aside, write a letter of support in order for that to happen.
So let me ask, so the property right now is City of Prescott property?
It's BLM property, but we have it leased through the Recreation and Public Purposes Act.
Okay. All right, thanks. Councilman Blair?
Don't run off, Joe. Over the years, we've had a presumed master plan for Pioneer Park as a regional park, and also understanding that the Jeep Posse is situated out there on one of those parcels, which the same very thing happened to that. My question to you is how does this affect the range of in the future things going out there? Are we having that? Do we have a need for that piece of property as far as the overall master plan, or not?
Councilman Blair, that piece of property is probably about the best one that they could have picked from this perspective, because there's really no future park plans for any amenities there. It's kind of a sliver in the upper part of that piece, so there's really nothing that would fit very well there. I do like the fact that we could potentially have a visitor center that could be staffed 7 days a week without city staffing it. So I think that's an advantage. But as far as a piece of property, it's 1,100 acres out there altogether. Some is county leased,
right.
Some is city leased, and this is a small percentage of that. Doesn't have any trails running through it, and no future plans.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that.
Councilwoman Wilcox?
Well, you just answered my question. I was going to ask you if would it be necessary to reroute any of the trails, but it sounds like no. Is that correct?
A portion of the Jan Alfano Trail runs through the lower part of that, but my guess is that they'll want to move the building up towards Pioneer Parkway a little bit more. So we would want to be, once they do some preliminary findings and figure out where the building would be situated, we'd look at that. But just through that very, I guess it would be the very eastern portion of that, there's a small trail, but we could even reroute that pretty easily. So no, there's no infrastructure, no recreation infrastructure or otherwise in that area right now.
Okay. I'd really like the idea of shared parking for trailhead events, parking for RVs. I know it is a crunch to try to go downtown in a large RV. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council?
Mayor, could I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Could you guys talk a little bit more about what the visitor center might have in terms of amenities, or what kind of things beyond the office space you've considered?
So right now, since we're really in that preliminary stage, typically most of our visitor center will have provide information from a trail standpoint or from just a resource standpoint. So we could, some offices even have things that change, on a different basis, like depending on what's going on. So just interpretive type facilities, things like that. Maps providing information like where to go for different things. As we start up with fire season, having something, fire related.
We could co-locate City of Prescott information at that facility as well.
Yes, and so that was one thing that we had talked about with Joe is, having, chamber folks or chamber information might be an opportunity. We are also looking at other federal agencies that might want to be in the building with us. So one of them is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I think they're located in a Lease building in Prescott Valley right now. So we're looking at other things, joint and partnership kind of stuff. So if the city has some stuff that we can look at, for sure, interpretive stuff, or
that'd be great.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Here again, consolidation's a good thing, because tax dollars, they're all the same tax dollar, and we all work for the same taxpayer. So I really appreciate the Forest Service, especially in the city of Prescott, looking at all opportunities to serve the public here, not moving out. And as you're very much aware of, we're also looking at expanding our opportunities to ensure our relationship at the airport, in the slurry bombers, in the Forest Service, and all the things we need to do to keep the people not only in the general area, but specifically for me in the city of Prescott, safe, and any opportunity we have to work with not only the Forest Service, but BLM, et cetera, to forward these initiatives is a good thing.
Councilwoman Orr?
Yeah, I just, on a kind of a different side, I really like your presentation. Quite creative. What is the program that you use then?
I just used Prezi. I think it's easier than PowerPoint because you can borrow other people's presentations and make copies of them, so they're all
It's
posted.
very
Like you can
nice.
steal that off YouTube and use
Very
it.
nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Any from the public? Okay, city manager, I guess we can start putting together a letter.
Yeah, we'll work on a letter from the city supporting this endeavor.
When do you need this letter? Soonest?
Yes,
Okay.
whenever, you know, you can get it done.
By this afternoon? No, I'm just teasing.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. B, please.
Economic Development Update by Jim Robb.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's my first time doing this, so be patient. One thing I'd like to do before I start is, why did I get interested and what am I doing and what for? So a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be involved with Embry Aeronautical University, and one of their business professors asked me to come out because of my technology background and business background to be involved with the seniors in their projects when they come out to grade them to see if they really have any legs to it and would it be worth investing in. And there were some other people that were kind of on the panel that were involved, and I saw some of these projects I thought were pretty good and probably could be commercialized. So when I got done with the business professor, I said, where do they go from here? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, is there an incubation? Is there some kind of funding that these kids can get to take these products to the next level? And he said, no, there isn't. And one of the ones that I reviewed was really good. And so what happens is the people will leave, graduate, and wherever they're from, they'll go back and take their technologies or ideas and take them to another state or wherever they're from. I did the same thing at NAU when Yavapai College. And what I finally realized is we have a lot of talented people in our colleges and our universities that really would like to stay here and like to incubate and create businesses. So I got involved with that, and I've been doing this for 35 years. So that's what kind of got this thing going, why don't we have our young people here, or people, entrepreneurs, and people that want to create good jobs and go to do things for the 21st century. Bottom line is, well, if we look at Embry-Riddle and our other colleges, Embry-Riddle, I've had people here from around the United States looking at it. It's what we call in the technology a 4.0 university. I mean, it's the creme de la creme. So to me, we got an MIT sitting here, and I'm trying to figure out how to utilize it for the city and for all of us. So I'm going to kind of zip through some slides here. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Jim, I'd like to add to your previous story there, and I think the other problem that you had was there was no venture capital funding available, so that if somebody wanted to advance their project into something that could be commercialized, there was just absolutely no money.
Correct. And let me just, if I had Steve Zylstra here, who's the CEO of the Arizona Technology Council, he would tell you that one of the biggest problems you have in the state of Arizona. I was fortunate enough to be in Seattle from '85 to 2000, and we had venture capital, incubation money. And so if we look at when it comes what we call a technology transfer, and I helped Arizona State University, the IRA Fulton School of Engineering, put their ANGEL program together for technology transfers that came out that could be commercialized. We don't have incubation money here in Prescott, but in the state of Arizona, there's an extreme lack of venture capital. And I don't want to get into that because that would go on for hours. Bottom line is, what I want to try and create is that we can find venture capital and incubation funding for our colleges and universities for these startups. You're absolutely correct.
Yep. Can everybody hear him back there? Does he need to speak into the mic? Everybody hear him okay? Okay.
So the core purpose, the partnerships that fuel sustainable economic growth. And here's what I'm doing you the short version because I could talk for 16 days and you guys would all fall asleep, so we'll zip through it. Bottom line is, how do we create high-paying jobs in the Prescott area? To create businesses that will have high-paid employees through technology transfer from our institutions of higher education by the way of incubation or satellite offices. Let me describe what I mean by satellite offices. So if we look at the technologies that can be incubated from our own universities or colleges, the second piece of that is what I call satellite offices. So an example would be, we have many companies in the state of Arizona or across the United States that would be willing to probably put what I call a satellite office. So an example would be, I'm talking to Microsoft right now, and I'm talking to some senior executives of Microsoft, and I said, hey, look, you got X number of people in the Valley. And I told them about Embry-Riddle. They asked, well, which group of Microsoft would you like here? I said, I don't care. I just want 15 employees. And so we're working on a program to have Microsoft put a satellite office up here for 10 to 15 employees. The second piece that we're doing, if you look down in the Valley, there's a company called Avnet. Avnet is a $36 billion distributor. They're the largest distributor of IBM products in the world. So that would be a distributor. So they would distribute products for IBM, HP, and Cisco. Underneath that would be a reseller. There's a reseller in the Valley by the name of Insight that is about $3.5 billion. I'm talking to Insight, which would be great for Yavapai College and for Embry-Riddle to put a satellite up here, again, of 10 or 15 employees. I think the difference in the strategy that I'm trying to do here is I'm not trying to chunk off and say we're going to have 500 people or 1,000 people moving here. It's small satellites, incubation. I call it, we're trying to create sparks here, and that will eventually create a flame. The third piece on the mission is to bring technology conferences here, to bring our high-tech people from around the state to have their conferences here. So as an example, we're very fortunate that the Arizona Technology Council has hundreds and hundreds of members. And Steve Zylstra, who's the CEO, has moved his conference from Sedona to Prescott, which will be here August 14th and 15th. Now, I'm a sales guy, so you're going to have to excuse me for a second. I look at that and say, we have 100 technology CEOs that will be here in Prescott. That's 100 people that I can sell on why they should have a satellite office up here, on the capabilities of our college, our university, and for lifestyle. So we're pretty excited about that. We also have in September, we're going to have our first Cybersecurity Consortium conference, which will be in conjunction with Embry-Riddle. That one will probably be around 50 to 60 senior executives from the technology, and that's a national, not just a state. So those types of conferences, what I finally realized is we can start to bring those up here 25, 50 at a time and start to entice companies to have their, each one of those 100 CEOs for the Tech Council, they will all have retreats and they all have strategy sessions. So while they're here, we want to convince them to have their strategy sessions and their retreats up here so they can get more familiar with our beautiful area and the capabilities that we provide. So, you know, at the end of the day, here's what we're kind of hoping. Can there be a stronger local economy with an expanded tax base? And with the money that we bring in from these new people, what we're trying to do is get these types of folks that can contribute to the community. And so mobility, improved roads, transportation, you know, manage growth for a balanced community. So what I'm trying to do here is not rock the boat by bringing, 6,000 people here. That's why I'm creating the Sparks. We can do it in a timely fashion that doesn't change the culture, because that's why I'm here, the culture and the charm of Prescott. I mean, if anybody doesn't go down to the plaza and get teary-eyed, it's fabulous. So we don't want to change that, but we do want to create, I think, what I call high-paying jobs for our young people and start to create that energy coming back that'll help to create to the tax base. So there are investment fund, incubation partners, corporate partners, workforce development partners. I'm not going to go through a lot of this, but there's a couple slides in here I really want to get to. So it's sustainable economic development and growth. The other thing is what's nice about technologies, it's clean, and it doesn't take water, folks. Well, that's not true. The employees are going to drink some water, but we can have them drink bottled water. That's cool. So the key, part of the key is creating this local tech incubation fund. We were talking about this, and I said, boy, wouldn't it be cool if we could have an innovation center downtown? So here are these technology CEOs staying here, and we could walk them across in our town and show them an innovation and an incubation center and an entrepreneur center that they could see exactly what we're doing, which would be kind of fun. So facilitate local and cyber tech conferences. We got lucky. We got 2 of them already. Attract new corporate satellite offices. I'm working on 4 or 5 of those. I'm sure I can get a Microsoft. I can get Insight, and I'm working on a few other ones that are very, very exciting. Formalize a local cyber and tech ecosystem. If you ever get a chance, everybody in this room, please go over to Embry-Riddle University and take a tour. And when I saw their cyber intelligence and security lab, I went nuts. I mean, it's really something to see. When you see the technologies that they're working on and how they're changing the 21st century, and it's right here in Prescott, I don't know. It got my heart started, and everybody I've taken there gets their heart started. So please, take the time to go over and take a look at it. And what we want to do is develop cyber tech workforce with the university. So, you know, I'm going to try and make this short so we can get into some questions. But leading edge cybersecurity technology companies, investment funds, and executives, that's what we want to bring here. These are high-paying jobs. And when I say high-paying, let me give you an example. And I'm going to, you can yell at me afterwards. I went over to Embry-Riddle. I sat down with John Haas, who's part of the College of Cyber Intelligence and Security, and I said, John, I know people at Amazon. He goes, oh, Jim, they've been here. I said, what do you mean they've been here? He goes, oh, yeah, they hired 5 of our graduates. They started the Global Cybersecurity Intelligence Center for Amazon. I said, great, where is it? He goes, Phoenix. I cried. I went home that night, told my wife, and that was the end of it. So that should have been in Prescott. So the relationship that we have with Embry-Riddle, the relationship that we have with Penny over at Yavapai College and our other colleges, we've got to be tighter with that. So shame on me for not knowing that Amazon was here. And I'll take full responsibility for that, but that ain't going to happen again, I'll tell you. So build local cybersecurity tech conferences, which we're doing, operations center, tech company satellite office, incubators, investment funds. I'm working with a company out of Bend, Oregon, and I'm going to do this real fast, but Bend, Oregon was in 2008 when the real estate, we know what happened. That was a community that was very much like ours, but it was really based on primarily construction, real estate, and tourism. And they went from hardly any unemployment to 21%. They were, 4 years ago, ranked 169th in the Milliken small cities. Technology people from Silicon Valley decided that, hey, we want to live here. We want lifestyle. We don't want to live in San Francisco anymore. We got to figure out how to do this. 4 of my friends put in $2.5 million each. They started a fund of $10 million. They got together with the city and the county, and they took their tourism and economic development, came up with messaging and positioning, and what they said is, we want entrepreneurs and high-tech telecommuters to come to our community, and we welcome you. They built an innovation center. Today, in less than 4 years, they are the #1 small city in the United States, according to Milliken. They have attracted in 4 years, in this last year in 2016, 670 high-tech telecommuters and entrepreneurs from Seattle, Portland, and the Bay Area, and the average wage is $126,000. And they're buying houses and cars and contributing to the community. So that fund, which is called Seven Peaks Venture, I've had one of the guys over here, he went to Embry-Riddle, and we're working on setting up an incubation fund through Seven Peaks from Bend, Oregon, which we would collaborate. They're in Austin, Denver, let me get this right, Austin, Denver, Seattle, Portland, and Silicon Valley. So for us to have a partnership like that is a really, really big deal. So the brand of who we are and what we do, the Cyber Hub, innovation atmosphere, you know, our lifestyle here, most of the cities in the United States, I can go from Durham, North Carolina to Cincinnati, Ohio. They're trying to pitch lifestyle. We have everything here from weather to, I mean, how many cities are going to have 4 colleges in it? our size. So it's amazing. So the other thing that's part of this, and then I'm going to shut up, but when we get into scale, we talk about licensing and IP. So when we do a technology transfer, an example might be, it doesn't mean we're necessarily going to build a business. That technology might be something that Intel needs in one of their chips. I'll license it. So we license that technology. It could be millions of dollars. So there's different avenues that we can do, which is really kind of cool. One of the things, and then this is the last thing, is that when I had the guys here from Bend, the venture, they felt that the cybersecurity operations centers could be created right here. And here's a number of companies he named for me: HP, Oracle, obviously Amazon's here, but major companies would want their, what they call SOC, Strategic Operations Center, located here. So I'm working on that too. I'm going to kind of skip through some of this, but I mean, obviously the universities, you know, we're working with that. These are some of the companies that I'm talking to: Seven Peaks and Tall Waves down in the valley. Nehemiah is a security investment company out of Washington, D.C. that has a $500 million fund. I'm trying to get them over here. The Cyber Awareness Consortium, that will be here in September. The Angel Capital Association, my friends run that. That's basically 13,000 angel investors and 240 investment groups. So I'm trying to get them over here to take a look at what we're doing. I'm going to get into some of this. So, I mean, why Prescott? I mean, we look at this thing and the facilities, the lifestyle. I mean, honestly, and it's still, and don't get me wrong, from a cost standpoint, when you look at Seattle, I sent an article out the other day that a young lady sold her condo in Seattle, Washington. She put it on the market, and one day she had 24 offers and sold it for $100,000 more than the asking price. So if we look at Seattle, Portland, even still Austin, Boston, New York, and you look at Prescott and you go, it's still a place where you can live, you can raise a family, and you aren't going to go broke on housing. So I think we have all the key ingredients. So I can get into this, but this is kind of where I wanted to go, was awareness, promotion, cyber events, venues, local resources, our value prop in 17, which turns into 2000, end of 17 and 18, venture incubation funds, corporate investment, and our satellites, large and middle-sized organization. And then in 18 and 19, we're actually into new IP as intellectual property, and the SOC is the Strategic Operations Center, our licensing and incubation of new IP and startups. So that's kind of where I'm going. I think anything else I'd drive you nuts and bore you. So, and I already done that, but.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
Thanks, Jim. Other than hiring you, which seems to be a very good investment, what other kind of public investment do you think we will need to make in order to make this happen?
Great question. So let me be really candid about this if I can. And I'm standing there for theory. This is my boss. This is good. I think there's two things. I think one is if we can figure out how to create an innovation center here, I think that would be one. And I can get into details on that. Two is, and this is really candid, we really, really need, and I love our hotels and I love the Hacienda and I love everything we have. We need something that's boutique like you would find in Portland, the Heathman Hotel, or in Seattle, the Mayflower, where it is a really high-end custom boutique hotel that could hopefully hold at least 100. What I'm trying to do is, and I have nothing against the reservation, but I'm limited to what we can bring here because they want to be in one place at one time. So they're going to the resort. I don't want them to go to the resort. I want them to go to our hotels. So I think if we had that type of hotel here, I could drive some serious conferences. And the other thing is, these CEOs that are on the high tech, they got expense accounts. I mean, they're going to spend money. They want to play golf. They want to hike. They want to have their retreats up here. So I think if we could get that, that would be very helpful.
In terms of the satellite offices and relocating small companies here, do we need economic incentives to do that?
Great question. I'm sure we probably will, and let me tell you why I'm doing it 10 or 15 at a time. we don't have to come up with the incentives for that. If it was for 100, then they're going to come after us, right? So that's why I'm trying to create these sparks that are a smaller group, because what they're going to ask for, they aren't going to ask for anything because it's not that big of a deal. If we get a group that says, I want to move, so an example would be in Bend, a buddy of mine was a CEO of a company in Silicon Valley. He had 300 employees, and they wanted to get out. They moved their company to Bend. But they only took 115 employees, and they were around 150 grand average wage. And the city helped them with a building, is what they did for in that area. And I think they didn't really give them that much of a tax break, but they helped them with a building and gave them a few other incentives. And with the premise that they would move 115 first, but they would get all 300 from the Silicon Valley.
Councilwoman Orr?
Yes, Jim, thank you. I think that what I like the most about all of this is how we're working with what we have already, which is the university, Embry-Riddle, Prescott College, Yavapai College, NAU. There's just so much opportunity that we already have that talent is just, kind of a brain drain. I was out at the Embry-Riddle graduation on Saturday. Mayor and I were out there, and it's amazing to see those young people, and then they're on the plane come Sunday and they're gone. And it would be just tremendous. So this I believe, I like this so much because it gives us a plan. The fact that you have two major, they're pretty major conferences bringing in people that otherwise would not even be coming to Prescott to see what we have. Because, when you're the #1 place to live in the Southwest, why wouldn't these companies want to think about having a satellite?
I think there's two things. And the first is that if you look at a community, I look at a business, and what are the assets?
Yeah.
Really, at the end of the day. So do we have lifestyle? Do we have the weather? Do we have all the things that are, that are natural? Then we take a look, what are the other assets here? And we look at that, and we look at the plaza, you look at the events we do, you look at the entertainment, and then I started saying, okay, well, how does that going to attract the high tech? When we start to look at Embry-Riddle, and even, now that Prescott College, that John's here, and one of the things, just to tell you what I'm trying to do over at Yavapai College, and I think I skipped on this, but this is important for all of us. Yeah. So Yavapai College, I met with Penny. In the next 2 years, there is 1.4 million jobs in coding and software development.
Yeah.
They do no coding and no software development at Yavapai College. I'm working with Microsoft to try and get a coding deal done so they will have a certification program that comes out of Yavapai College. I can get those kids jobs. Because
That's a 2-year school, too, isn't it?
it's 2, that's all I need. The certification for the software and that would be, I'd make it a 2-year deal. The other side of that is if we get those kids in a program like that, their probably next move could be if either get a job, or it could be I'm going to go to ASU or U of A, which would be a natural act after that. Yeah, and Penny's very receptive to that. So actually, I'm meeting with her and her new VP, and we're going to talk about that. So my other goal was to take where we have an Embry-Riddle, that's what I would call 4.0, and the other side of that is to take our Yavapai College and try and beef that up and get some of these pieces in the 21st century so that we can get some of these kids some jobs. Those jobs, by the way, the average pay on that's $85,000. So the jobs that I'm talking about, when I say high pay, the lowest would be $85,000. Most the Embry-Riddle, the kids that did Amazon, it was close to 200, a little over 200,000 each kid got to start that security center. So if we do those here, and these are people that are making money, and my point was, let's contribute to the community. So it was like when I first met with Frank at Embry-Riddle, I says, hey, I'm not here to say, what are you going to do for me? I'm here to say, what am I going to do for you? And how can I help you with your plans? And let me tell you what I see. I'm going over next week on Wednesday to have lunch with Frank, and he's going to have everybody. We're going to go through an absolute asset of everything that Embry-Riddle's doing. I want to know nuts to bolts, everything that they have, and then I can figure out how to map that from everything. So here's an example. 4,000 students that graduated from Embry-Riddle work at Boeing.
Yeah.
why doesn't Boeing, I get nuts over this stuff, have a satellite here? You already got 4,000 of the kids, so what satellite can we put up here that Boeing can take those kids, and the ones that want to stay here, we can create those jobs? I'm talking to Boeing on that. So there's some things I'm doing under the wire because it's going to take time, but I want to have Boeing to have a satellite here. For God's sakes, they've got 4,000 of our students, so let's have them help do something here. But other than that, I'm not doing anything.
Well, the other thing too is, city manager and I are working with Jim Robb, Penny Wills, John Flicker, and Frank Ayers to put together a working group that's looking at how we're going to advance technology here, because we think every higher institution of learning here has something to benefit from technology and being part of this entire planning process.
Yeah,
you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, and the other thing is too, Harry, I got to go over and meet with John. I mean, we had the one meeting with Penny and Frank. I need to go there and understand what the assets are of Prescott College, and let me tell you what I mean by that. There might be some environmental technologies or things that are working on. Example of my best friend is the head of the Clean Energy Commission for the state of Colorado, and he's on the board of Blackstone, which is the largest private equity firm in the world, and he's in charge of entrepreneurship for Blackstone. If I can find some things that they're doing at Prescott College that might be of interest, there could be technologies out of there that we can use. The environment's very important. I think there are some things over there. So we're trying to put these pieces together to figure out how does everything come in sync and map to one another for all our colleges and universities, not just Embry-Riddle. So I get excited about that because I'm a technology guy, but I look at what Yavapai can accomplish in a short period of time for our local students here that can get them good jobs. I'm all for that. Same thing with Prescott College. So I'm really trying to bring these assets, but I'll tell you, if we can get this incubation environment, let me give you an example down in Phoenix, and this is non-technology. Anybody, what's the mattress, Tufts and whatever it is? The new mattress company that they came out of, Tufts and Needle. 2 kids from Silicon Valley had no money. They had $6,000 between them. They went down to SkySong, which is the ASU Incubation Center and Entrepreneurship. Well, that company now is $150 million, and they took no venture money and built that. So I was sent an email out the other day to, I think I sent to Harry and a few other people, and I said, we were talking about money. And I said, when I was in Seattle and I watched all this take place from 85 to 2000, and I looked at our state budget of $10 billion, I can name 3 guys and their personal net worth could pay the state budget for 25 years and not take a dime out of their company, and they'd still have money left over. And every one of those guys was an entrepreneur. Every one of those guys started with nothing. How many kids are sitting at Embry-Riddle or Yavapai College or Prescott College that have those dreams and hopes? That's really what our community can offer, and it's fabulous. That's why I get so excited about it. And I won't shut up because I love it, because I think we have something that's just so perfect, and the timing in the 21st century, perfect. So I'm done.
Well, you got a couple more people here
Okay.
need to talk to you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we go back ways, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right. A couple of things. Number one, thank you for not leaving out Prescott College. Being the best at who we can be includes Prescott College. Yes. Okay. And you're right, the environment is a very important thing in today's world, whether we're talking about the environment on this planet or someplace else. And I will assure you that Prescott College has some of the brightest minds in the city also. So having said that, thank you for bringing them into the picture. Thank you for what we do with Embry-Riddle, and thank you for what we do with Yavapai, and understanding entrepreneurship is probably, of course, one of the most important things in the United States economy that we have. It's not just about going to school learning how to be somebody's employee. It's about going to school and learning how to be somebody's employer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Councilman Shiska.
You know, Jim, it was great meeting with you the other day. I have one word that I wrote down on my notes here, and that's enthusiasm. And it's contagious, and we really, really, really appreciate it. Michael, we appreciate your thought into hiring Jim, bringing him on board. This is truly a public-private partnership, isn't it?
It is, Steve, and you know, you're right about Jim's enthusiasm, but also his laser focus.
Yes.
And the other thing that even from my interviews, that I've felt very strongly about, and Jim sort of dovetailed on that, is you have to take advantage of what you have. You need to leverage your assets, and that's what this is. This is leveraging what we have. And the other thing that I think that Jim's brought to the table, and John, is we had this false dichotomy between our tourism and our economic development, but they have so much synergy. I mean, beyond the talent intellectually, what we have is the quality of life and the outdoor amenities that are attractive to millennials. And we need to market and promote that from not just come visit here, come put your company here. Is that?
Well, yeah,
That's really
enthusiasm begats enthusiasm. And so from that standpoint, it sounds like it's our job to lower the average age here in Prescott. And we
I didn't
appreciate
say that, sir.
No, but I did. I'll tell you what, we have a store in Flagstaff, and the market is so totally different up there. It is enthusiastic, it is young, and it's dynamic. And I would love to see more of that here.
Thank you. Hey, Gene, one last, you asked me what else can we do for you. I don't want to get into this, but on the airport side, just real fast, when you look at Bend, Oregon, it's in a horrible location. I mean, it's got the rivers and you can ski, and it's got the mountains and all that. But to get to anywhere, it is a pain. It's a 3.5-hour drive over Mount Hood to get to Portland. So their asset is that they have nonstop flights from San Jose, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. So I can get to my second home in a heartbeat. I can stay in my home and fly back to Silicon Valley on Sunday night. If we had anything that would really help me or to help us with economic development, would be a flight that we could at least figure out how to get to San Jose. And what that will do is that would open up Silicon Valley so I can start going up and seeing the Silicon Valley guys. Because you think they fell in love with Bend, well, I show them this. But I got to get them here. And they aren't going to fly to Phoenix. They won't fly to Phoenix and take a bus up or any of that stuff. That's not going to happen. We are self-sustaining as a community. And if our airport can be self-sustaining with these satellite offices, with what we want to start with our incubation, and to bring these companies here and to get Silicon Valley type of venture here, we will leapfrog, and I love our state, don't get me wrong, we'll leapfrog right now. I think we can leapfrog Phoenix, Tucson, and every place else. Not to have the masses, but to have the quality that we want. Those are two different things.
Councilwoman Orr.
Well, Steve, you can lower our age anytime you want to. I like that idea. Actually, and I like your comment, Jim, about it's about quality, not so much quantity, because we are talking about quality. And I actually experienced this when we lived in Bozeman, Montana. We were there for about 8 years, and a gentleman wanted to raise his family because of the quality of life there. So he came out with his family, started a small company in his garage called Right Now Technology.
Yep.
And Greg Gianforte developed it into an amazing company worldwide, sold it to Oracle for $1.5 billion.
Yep.
And a lot of the people that were working with him, the young people, decided to stay in Bozeman, and they did their own little startups. And so Bozeman now is kind of a hub, and their airport was absolutely critical in making part of that happen. So I think we need to push forward with that airport.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Because that's really
It's a great story of success, and now so many people there have been able to enjoy pretty good wealth because of it. So.
And that's what happened in Seattle. So when the Microsoft guys got their options, the options came due. They took their $8 million. They started their own business. And we had, well, I was there. So in 1991, there were, when I first started with some other guys, the Washington Software Association, there was just Microsoft and 2 or 3 of us. By 1991, we had 127 members, which means 127 companies. But all from people that started entrepreneurially, started their own companies. Thank you very much.
We just got a couple of
Just
people here.
real quick, I think one of the important comments you made, I've got a good friend that started a company called Syntech, and he's out of Berkeley. And I drug him here. He'd never been here before. And he said, do you have any idea what kind of gym you have in the city of Prescott? Now, this is 6 months ago. And I said, yeah. I said, what do you think? And he said, I think if you had an airport, this place would absolutely be phenomenal. So along with the rest of this council, I think that's our driving force, is to make that happen. And I think it's been needed for a long, long time. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Shiska.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a comment, you know, if you get any more successful, which hopefully you'll get a lot more successful here in this town, they're going to have you on Dancing for the Stars next year.
Well, failure's not bad.
No, you're not going to do that.
Well, let me go ahead and bring up a couple other points. I was at the governor's Arizona Technology Conference about a month and a half ago, and he had a number of businessmen from Silicon Valley, and many of them are moving out of California because of the cost of living, and many of them are going into nearby states, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, sometimes I guess up into Oregon. And they felt that Arizona had a high potential because the quality of life here, our regulatory environment, our taxes, and everything else. So this one guy said he's moved half his company to Phoenix, and he said if he could do it tomorrow, he'd move the rest of the company to Phoenix. He really wants to get out of Silicon Valley. So I think there's some great opportunity there. The other thing, of course, is to talk about enrollment at Embry-Riddle. You know, we're going to see a lot more of these students coming in here.
2,400 next?
I think they're 2,500 right now, and they're growing at about 10% a year, because this is the only campus that has any ability to expand. The Florida campus is landlocked. They really can't put anything else in there. So it looks like a lot of the emphasis out of Embry-Riddle, and Embry-Riddle is in the top 25 universities in the United States. They also have most of the kids that go there in the top 5% of their class. So, you know, when you get in the cream of the crop, there's a very good chance that you're going to get people that are very qualified to look at entrepreneurial things, technology things, and advanced ideas that are going to be part of the market, you know, 5, 10, 15 years from now. So I think this is absolutely important. Also, when we, Billy and I met with President Butler, I think his last name was, this weekend, we talked about the incubator. And the one thing he said is that, and I think he kind of alluded to the fact that his incubator is about 3 or 4 miles away from the campus. And he says it's not as successful as they would like it to be. He said you really need to have the incubator. And I guess he came from Iowa State and some other places. So he's had an opportunity to see incubators that are associated with a university. And he says it's very important to have an incubator associated with the university, because the students can go to class, go to the incubator, develop their ideas, go back to class and stuff like that. And even Dr. Harris said that having a small incubation facility out at the airport, he said that could be just like having it 3,000 miles away. So for those that don't know, you know, we're working with Northern Arizona Council of Governments to try and get some funding to start an incubator at Embry-Riddle, and also Dr. Ayers will provide the land, and then we will actually have to probably provide some matching funds. But hopefully we get something like that done in the next couple of years. But in the meantime, if we can find an innovation center downtown, that would be a great plus for us.
Yeah. One last thing that I'd like to say is there's a there's a movement going on across the United States, and I'll tell you 2 seconds about it. There's a guy out of Northern California. His name's Robert Goldberg, and Robert lives in Lake Tahoe on the Nevada side. And he was a big-time Silicon Valley guy. If any of you guys, if any of you ever played any games called Farmville or any of the online games or that, the corporate name of that is a company called Zynga. And Robert was kind enough to fund Zynga, that went public and went to well over several $1 billion. And he knows, he plays with the Zuckerbergs and the big kids. So anyhow, what happened was the people in Reno kept asking him to help him out. Obviously, when the construction was a problem. And what he did is he started to see that these communities like Reno or Prescott or different rural areas in the Midwest that weren't getting the technology industry, he got with a Zuckerberg, and he's talking to the Google guys, and they're going to put a conference together. The conference is called Blueprint. And the idea is because we have all these technology concentrations, which you do in Silicon Valley and San Jose and Seattle and Portland. And what these big companies are saying is they'd like to figure out, and this is why I started the movement for the satellite thing, is how to move some of those technologies as opposed to going to India and as opposed to going to China, to figure out how to take those technologies into the Midwest and the other parts of the United States and rural communities where they can start to get the benefit of those jobs and we can start to train those people. So the conference has been switched to September. There's going to be 3 governors there. It's Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and all CEO, senior executive level. And the idea is, how do we put a blueprint together to make that happen? So I'm actually part of that. And I would never push for Prescott or anything like that during that event, obviously. I'm very neutral. But so the movement has started. I think what we have here is 99% of everything that people want. And I think the 1% is the airport. So whatever that's worth.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Before we step down, Jim, do we have any from the public? Okay, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Item 3C.
Legislative update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Tyler Goodman from the City Manager's Office, and we are this close to getting to the end of the legislative session for the year. It just seems to keep prolonging another 24 hours at a time. But in all honesty, 24 to 48 hours is what we're expecting, then it's over. Here's an update on a few items that are either still in play or just closing the loop on things we've covered. The first being the heart and cancer bills regarding the firefighters and workers' comp. The cancer portion, HB 2161, was amended just last week to change it so that it limits the presumption time to 15 years at the conclusion of active service rather than being indefinite. So that's quite a big change. Both of those are currently on the governor's desk, and they're expected to be signed without a problem there. So just wanted to fill you in on those. The next one would be Senator Fan's Bill 1332, which allows for full and final settlement of workers' comp claims. That's also on the governor's desk and expected to be signed, so that's good news. And the big news, the budget. The budget was passed. The legislature passed a $10 billion budget, and it includes a bonding plan for the universities without touching TPT, sales tax, the state shared revenue formula, which is a huge deal for cities and towns. So that is great news. What they're going to be doing is appropriating each year money to fund that for the universities, starting with $27 million in the next fiscal year, which is quite a bit. Good news for HERF as well. This includes a backfill of $30 million of HERF funds over the next 2 years for local street and road projects, and the intent is going forward to reduce the sweeps to HERF by FY20 by appropriating $30 million from the state's general fund to DPS rather than taking it from HERF. So that's also really good news for us. A little bit of bad news with the budget. So if you remember HB 2495, this is something I covered a few times over the last couple months. That is the bill that it deals with consolidating election dates, meaning that the city would only be allowed to hold elections to increase sales tax in the fall of even-numbered years, the opposite of the cycle we currently have. It died during the legislative session. It was brought back as part of budget discussions, kind of as a quid pro quo to get a few votes. Apparently, it appears that the governor's signature is contingent upon that being included in the budget. It's that big of a deal, I suppose. So luckily, Barry Aarons has been working really hard to get an amendment in there, which he did during the regular part of the session, and now he's done it again with this bill, to ensure that the effective date of this won't take place until after December 31st of this year, so that it will not affect our current election cycle. Obviously, the league is against this. Cities and towns are against this. There's precedent to say that charter cities cannot be dictated this way. This happened with Canada elections. If it goes to court, it's expected that it would have the same outcome, that charter cities are going to be able to choose their own election cycle for this type of issue. So in the grander scheme, I suppose it's not that great of a concern, but it still is something that takes away local control and continuously attempts to do that. So still against it, but Barry's worked hard for us to get that amendment in there so that it won't hurt us for this year. And we'll work with the league going forward if it does pass, which we all expect it will, because it's the governor's saying it should if he wants to sign the budget. So we'll keep working on that going forward. The other things I listed, I'm not going to go through all of those. This is just a list of things that we've covered throughout the session, kind of the outcomes, bills that we opposed, bills that we supported, a neutral one in the end. If you have any questions or comments on those, I'm happy to talk about them. I just want to give you kind of a briefing of what we've done over the last few months. And at the bottom of your handout, there's a few items I've listed. This is a working list of things that I think we should touch on during the interim. Working with Representatives Campbell and Stringer on the House Ad Hoc Committee for PSPRS. Exempt well drilling, requiring the 3 bids for that. We talked about that this year. The budget amendment for the hot shots going forward, which ends, I believe, after FY19, so we have a couple more years. Home rule, I know that was mentioned last week, so we can talk about that, address those issues. And then, of course, following up with the league on this consolidated election dates. And I just wanted to publicly thank our legislators, Representatives Campbell and Stringer and Senator Fan, for all of their hard work for us and their support, as well as Barry. He did a great job again for us this year, provided a lot of help. And of course, the League of Cities and Towns, they're absolutely great with information and helping us along the way. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on these things.
When I talked to Barry Aarons, our lobbyist, last Friday down in Phoenix, he indicated that he wants to come up sometime probably late this month or early next month to give us a complete rundown on the legislative session. So try and get that set up and put on the calendar.
We have. This morning I talked to Barry. We scheduled it for the next meeting this month, the 23rd.
Okay.
So he'll be coming and giving you a briefing and something similar but more in depth, I think, from his perspective. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Wilcox.
On the budget bill, it just looks like there's a lot of new money in the budget. 30 million for this and millions for that. What's being cut? It seems like we're cutting off one end of the blanket and sewing it on the other.
That is a great question. I don't know the details of how this money was moved around. Just getting the briefings from the league and from Barry, it's come out in our favor. I can certainly look into some of the details of where was the money taken from and what's being lost.
Well, maybe you can convey that question to Barry and he can address it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Councilwoman Orr.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I appreciate Senator Fan on this when this bill passed the House, the consolidation bill. She voted against it when it went to the Senate. I think she was one of
3
Republicans that did that. And however, now that it's kind of the ultimatum with the governor, it's pretty difficult. So I appreciate Barry Aarons passing this amendment. So the amendment is in the bill?
It is. It is in the bill that the Senate will vote on.
Pretty critical for us.
It is. It's very. And he made sure it was.
Okay.
It is. It's probably going to be voted on today if it hasn't.
That's what I heard
already.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm expecting to go back and check my messages to see if that's passed.
Well, thank you to Karen Pham. Thank
Absolutely.
you. And to Barry Aarons.
Go ahead.
You know, Mayor, I would add in terms of if you want on the working list, it's probably worth exploring the legislature looking at allowing rural cities to create a rural regional airport authority of some sort. We don't have that right now. It's sort of a joint powers authority, which has no property taxing abilities. And if the legislature were to create that create that enabling act, it would allow for then, let's say for instance, rural communities and counties to create a regional airport authority to regionally operate an airport and perhaps have some, property taxing authority, which would then, kind of dovetail into what we talked about earlier.
Okay, good. Take that under consideration. Anybody else? Got anything else? Anything from the public on legislative update? Okay. Thank you for coming, and meeting adjourned, and we'll get together again just short of another hour. Thank you.